When we look up at the night sky, we see a tapestry of stars, planets, and galaxies. It's a source of wonder, a cosmic ocean that has inspired poets, scientists, and explorers for millennia. But in recent times, this vast expanse has also become a new frontier for national ambition and for national defense. Former President Donald Trump turned his gaze upward, not just with the curiosity of an astronomer, but with the strategic mind of a commander-in-chief. He didn't just talk about going back to the moon or Mars, he spoke about space as a domain of power, a place where American interests needed to be protected. This wasn't just a continuation of past space policies, it was a dramatic shift in perspective, framing the cosmos as the next great arena for global competition. Trump's vision for space was bold, assertive, and surprising. He often spoke in grand terms, evoking a sense of destiny and American leadership. His famous declaration that space is a war-fighting domain, just like the land, air, and sea, sent ripples through both the scientific and military communities. This statement wasn't just rhetoric, it was the foundation of a new policy. He envisioned a future where America wouldn't just be a participant in space, but the undisputed leader. So, what exactly is this Space Force? Let's break it down. On December 20th, 2019, President Trump signed into law the creation of the United States Space Force. It was the first new military service since the Air Force was established in 1947. It's not about sending soldiers with laser guns to fight on the moon, like in a science fiction movie. Instead, its mission is much more practical and, frankly, more critical to our daily lives. The Space Force is responsible for organizing military personnel to operate in space, training military personnel to operate in space, equipping military personnel to operate in space. Its primary job is to protect United States and allied interests in orbit, ensuring our access to space and our freedom to operate there. The idea wasn't entirely new. For decades, military thinkers had debated whether space operations needed their own service. The argument was that as space became more crowded and competitive, it required a specialized focus. Proponents argued a separate service would be better able to advocate for resources, develop a unique culture and doctrine, and build expertise tailored specifically to the space domain. Trump took this long-simmering idea and with his characteristic decisiveness, made it a reality. He saw it as a necessary step to counter the growing capabilities of potential adversaries. The Space Force's main goals are quite clear. First, it aims to maintain America's space superiority. This means ensuring that our satellites can operate without interference. Second, it's tasked with providing space capabilities to the other branches of the military. Think about a soldier on the ground using GPS to navigate, or a Navy ship using satellite communications to coordinate its movements. The Space Force is responsible for making sure those services are reliable and secure. Why all this fuss about space? It might seem distant and abstract, but the truth is, space has become the ultimate high ground in modern defense. Think about warfare in the past. Armies sought control of hills and mountains. That control gave a better view of the battlefield and a tactical edge. Today, space is that high ground, on a global scale. From orbit, satellites can see almost everything. They can hear almost everything. They connect our forces across vast distances, instantly. Without control of space, a modern military would be fighting blind, deaf, and lost. The Global Positioning System, GPS, is a constellation of about 31 satellites. We use GPS every day to find restaurants or track packages. For the military, GPS is indispensable. It guides so-called smart bombs with incredible precision. It lets troops navigate unfamiliar terrain. It coordinates movements of ships, planes, and ground forces. If an adversary could jam or destroy GPS satellites, the US military would be severely handicapped. It would be like taking away its map and compass in the middle of a war. Beyond navigation, satellites provide global communication. Commanders send secure orders via satellite to troops anywhere. Recon drones send real-time video back over satellite links. That flow of information is the lifeblood of a modern fighting force. Disrupt those channels and you sow chaos and confusion. Units become isolated and coordinated response becomes nearly impossible. The establishment of the Space Force, as envisioned under the Trump administration, was intended to be a significant boost to America's defense posture. The primary positive impact is specialization. By creating a military branch dedicated solely to space, the nation can cultivate a generation of officers and enlisted personnel who are true experts in this domain. Instead of being an auxiliary function of the Air Force, space operations become the central mission. This focused approach allows for the development of specialized training career paths, a unique service culture centered on mastering the challenges of orbital warfare satellite defense space domain awareness. This specialization is expected to accelerate innovation. With its own budget and leadership structure, the Space Force can advocate more effectively for the resources needed to develop next-generation space technology. The very existence of the Space Force sends a clear message to the world. The United States considers space a vital national interest and is prepared to defend it. Finally, a dedicated Space Force can improve the integration of space capabilities across the entire military. The Guardians of the Space Force are tasked with being the service providers for Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. The creation of the U.S. Space Force did not happen in a vacuum, and it certainly wasn't ignored by other global powers. For years, both Russia and China have been developing their own sophisticated space capabilities, including technologies designed to disrupt satellites, disable satellites, or even destroy satellites. America's move was seen as an escalatory step, a signal that the U.S. was formalizing intent to militarize the cosmos. These nations publicly condemned the move while quietly accelerating counterspace programs. Russia views the Space Force as a direct threat to its strategic stability. Russian officials say it undermines treaties and risks a cycle of action and reaction. Russia has continued anti-satellite tests. In 2021, they destroyed one of their own defunct satellites. That created a massive debris field that endangered the International Space Station. China's reaction has been similarly critical and arguably more consequential. Chinese strategists say space superiority is a prerequisite for winning future conflicts. They see U.S. reliance on space as a major vulnerability. China has doubled down, led by the PLA Strategic Support Force. They are developing ground-based lasers to blind satellite sensors. They are developing co-orbital inspector satellites that can approach and interfere with spacecraft. This action-reaction cycle raises risks of miscalculation and conflict. While the strategic logic behind the Space Force is clear, Trump's space defense revolution is not without significant challenges and risks. One of the most immediate concerns is the immense cost. Building, launching, maintaining a new generation of resilient military satellites. Developing defensive space systems, potentially offensive space systems, and standing up a new military branch requires a colossal financial investment. In an era of competing budget priorities, healthcare infrastructure allocating tens of billions will involve difficult trade-offs and could face political opposition. Another major risk is the potential for escalating conflict. Defining space as a war-fighting domain, creating a military branch to dominate it, may provoke an arms race. Other nations feel compelled to develop counterspace weapons, China, Russia, making orbit more hazardous for everyone. Weapons in space lower the threshold for conflict. That could trigger the Kessler syndrome. Orbits could become unusable for generations, destroying the space-based infrastructure the Space Force was created to protect. Donald Trump's vision for space defense, crystallized in the formation of the Space Force, fundamentally altered America's posture toward the cosmos and changed its approach to national security. It was a decisive move that took the abstract concept of space as a potential battlefield and made it a concrete organizational reality. The ambition is clear: to ensure that the United States can defend its vital interests in an increasingly contested domain, maintain its military edge, maintain its economic edge. This represents not just a new chapter in military history, but a recognition that our future safety on the ground is linked to our capabilities in the heavens. The ultimate meaning of this revolution for America's future safety is, however, a universe of uncertainty. On one hand, advocates argue that it is a prudent and necessary step. Failing to prepare for conflict in space would be a dereliction of duty, leaving critical infrastructure vulnerable. On the other hand, critics warn this path is fraught with peril. They say militarizing space risks stoking a new Cold War in orbit, expensive, destabilizing, potentially catastrophic. As the Guardians of the Space Force stand their watch, the nation stands at a cosmic crossroads. The path we choose will determine whether space remains a source of wonder, a platform for human progress, or whether it becomes the next great theater of war with consequences that would be felt across the globe.